Hello there. Good day to you, or good evening, depending on when you happen to be watching or listening to this. So, welcome to the live version of episode number 6, which is the third part in our 360-degree breakthrough solution that we're going to be diving into today. So, thanks for joining us, and let's rock and roll. Now, just a quick little reminder, I'm Joshua Shafran, the creator of the Motivation Sucks Show, which is all about how to achieve and live both material success and the making the meaningful impact, to be happy, fulfilled, joyous, and successful. So that's the premise, and the Motivation Sucks Show, as we've been discussing, is basically about giving everybody the tools and resources to recognize that they've been automatically living from a place of, or choosing the tale of two paths, but choosing the path of motivation, which is letting the Fred stories dictate to us what's going on, what's going to happen, and that type of thing. And it's also about intentionally shifting so that we live from inspiration-based living, and that we can realize that we have the power inside of us to no longer be somebody else's puppet, to be controlled by them, by a situation, by a circumstance, so that we are not automatically triggered, so that we're not, that we're in control, and that we recognize that we're in control. And we've been discussing all along my favorite quote from Carl Jung, which you can see part of behind me, which is, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And so what this is basically about is giving you the tools and resources to make the unconscious conscious, and so that and not to drive anything that's deep in your unconscious any deeper, so that you can arrest it and move forward accordingly with the right tools and resources. So that's the update of where we are. What we've been discussing all week here is trying to see where the best reflection is of the light here. I've been working on my lights, and I've got it almost to where I want it to be. But you can see here that this is the diagram that we've been working on, and we've been working this week, the 3 episodes that we've been diving deep on this week, in episode 4, 5, and now today 6. We've been talking all about the 3 barriers and the 3 individual breakthroughs, or we'll be talking about the third one today, on how you can achieve that 360-degree breakthrough yourself, so that you can have both. You can embrace the brilliance of the and enjoy happiness and wealth, joy and fulfillment, that type of thing. So just a quick review about where we've been and what brought us to today. Oh, and as I talked about briefly at the end of the last episode number 5, next week we're going to be diving deep into the 3-part process in each of the 3 workshop sessions next week. We're going to be diving into in depth into a methodology that you can use to implement this, to put this, hey Max, what's going on, man? So that you can dive deep into the nuances of how you can put this into work for yourself. And we also discussed that we have that we're going to be using building a successful online business as our teaching model to go through this, and you can apply it to any area of your life. But it's about having the balanced success in building an online successful business model, and that's what we're going to be doing. So next week we're going to be walking through the 3 whiteboard sessions are going to be all about the 3-part process of legitimize, personalize, capitalize. And that is as it pertains to building your online business. And we're going to go even deeper in the coming weeks on this. And again, you'll be able to see how you can actually create this across the board in any way, shape, or form that you need to or want to in any area of your life. You're going to see how it carries over. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to dive into the third breakthrough and the third barrier, which is motivated action over inspired action is the breakthrough, and that's how we're going to get there. So let's shift over to this version. How's that? Pretty cool, huh? Like a brand new bag, or Papa's got a brand new bag. We've got some cool stuff here that I've been playing around with so that we can create some cool stuff. Anyway, so here we go. Let me kind of zoom in here for just a second. And we started with the barrier of confusion. And we went from the barrier of confusion, and then we talked about what are the steps and how to R&D Fred, because the only thing keeping you from achieving and experiencing the what am I trying to say? The only thing that's keeping you from experiencing the clarity breakthrough here is, in fact, R&Ding your Fred stories, right? So what we're talking about is that's actually the way that you are able to experience the confidence breakthrough, and as well as going through and continuing to R&D your Fred stories so that you can experience the inspired action breakthrough as well. And so while we have this, like all three on the screen here, what I really want to do is share with you the logic behind the three barriers, right? So we've got the barrier of confusion as the first step on the journey, which makes sense. First, you have to gain some clarity. You have to experience the clarity breakthrough, at least some sort of a new understanding. Otherwise, you won't be able to start building enough confidence over here, the confidence, to be able to experience the breakthrough necessary that is going to take you past the barrier of inertia. And we talked about this in depth. The body at rest tends to stay at rest unless acted on by an outside source. Now, what we've got here is we've got excitement, we've got bulletproof, we've got ignorance on fire. These are all the inspired actions, or the steps to the inspired action breakthrough that takes us past motivation. And this is where we often get a lot of pushback when we're thinking about this, because we're saying, well, isn't motivation a good thing? Isn't it great to be self-motivated? Isn't it great to stop us from, isn't that the only thing that's in our way is, I need more motivation. And in fact, as we've been discussing all along, and maybe not this bluntly or directly, what we've been discussing is that motivation actually is, again, what we did call it is motives for action. And it's all the outside inventory. It's all the things that are taking shape. It's the situation. It's always the situation or the circumstance or other people in our lives and the way that we've interacted with them and their behavior towards us and our behavior towards them. And that becomes the way in which we behave or operate. And so when we start to dig into this, motivation is actually reinforcing our Fred stories. And what Fred is the guardian of separation. And we'll be talking about this in depth in, several weeks down the road now, so that I can give you what I call the Motivation 5.0 operating system, so that you can kind of understand how it was formed. But you need all this basis of understanding before we start getting into any of that stuff, because otherwise I think it'll get too confusing for everybody. So, but Fred's the guardian, right? And Fred's the one that's going to argue for you to say it's not it's nothing that you have control over. It's completely outside your control. And we talked about Fred jumping up and down in that jar and swearing to God. And Max asked a great question yesterday about how do you know when, like he said something to the extent of when you experience the clarity and you have that epiphany and you know exactly what you do and you feel like empowered, but then you still procrastinate and you still don't take action. What's going on there? And we talked about, each person is going to be different and it depends on where you are. But my guess is, for most of us, is that we experienced the clarity breakthrough, but we did not experience enough, at least, the confidence breakthrough so that we could overcome the barrier to of inertia, which is enough energy coming over, because the action, the behavior, the change in behavior that we're looking to achieve when we have that shift, and really when we are experiencing procrastination, what that is probably an indication of is that we have fear still in the mix there. There's enough fear in the mix, enough uncertainty that we're still, and we talked about this, that we're still fearful that even though it looks like there's no barrier up there, even though we believe, or we want to believe, that there's no lid on the jar anymore, we're still kind of hesitant to jump past where the lid once was, because we've smacked our head into it so many times and we've conditioned ourselves so many times to and flattened our head, that we're scared to do that again. Because think about it just logically, and connect with this. But if you had zero uncertainty, if you just absolutely knew that the results were going to be what you wanted them to be, like beyond a shadow of a doubt, and seriously, like zero uncertainty, then there is no holdback. There is no withholding on your part, because it just is, like there's no doubt. Now, if you don't choose to move forward and you've got zero uncertainty, then you know that you're making a conscious decision, not an unconscious one, but a conscious decision that, yeah, I got this, but I don't choose to move forward right now. If it's an unconscious decision, then it's still a Fred story running the show, and you're still being a little bit controlled to a greater or lesser degree. All right, so that's where we are, and the inspired action breakthrough. So I just want you to kind of look at, well, let me zoom in here. So we've got different themes of types of Fred stories and different emotions that they trigger. Down here, we're talking about depression and fear and anger and frustration, and we talked about that being the steps to success, the steps to the clarity breakthrough, so that you can overcome the confusion. We also talked about that this isn't necessarily linear, that we can bounce back. Now, we notice that the colors have changed up here because our mood has changed, our emotions have changed. Once we get past or enough and we reset our thermometer, not our thermometer, our thermostat to a new set point, now we the Fred stories that are running us are still limiting us. We still have limitations going on. We still have limiting beliefs. We still have circumstances and situations going on around us that we believe is the cause of why we feel the way that we feel, and that we don't have control over, that we don't have the ability to decide that way. But as we know that each one of these feels a little bit better than the other one, and we've learned how to, feel our way there. We've learned some of the techniques. And I'm not going to go back into them, but all of those carry forth to help us R&D the Fred stories, to R&D Fred, which is recognize, neutralize, and dissolve. And we also talked about that the instant that you recognize that there's an unconscious Fred story that was conditioned into us, the instant that you truly recognize it as a Fred story and not as a absolute, just something that you're stuck with and that we believe is truth, but it really isn't truth. And we talked about different ways to begin to make that conscious. And we also talked about how the more that you do this and you lift the weight, so to speak, the stronger that you get, the easier that all of this gets for us. So when we experience this now, lingering doubts feels a whole lot better than frustration, because lingering doubts means that, yeah, we've got some uncertainty. Yeah, but we've got some certainty in there, or some feelings of optimism, hopefulness, cautiously optimistic. That even feels better. Like lingering doubts feels a little bit worse than being hopeful that this is going to work, being hopeful that, that this isn't just some pipe dream. But it also, even though it feels worse than feeling hopeful about it, it feels a whole lot better than this confusion and overwhelm and all of the stuff that's down here, and the emotions that are connected to that, and running those stories and making us feel that way, right? All right, so then we moved on to inertia. And let me just see where we are. And we talked about, it's again the same process of just R&Ding each one of these. And by the way, this process can go really fast, right? Like you can go from, let me squeeze this down even more so that we can see all of it here. Like the full 360-degree success, or the 360-degree breakthrough. Believe it or not, on any subject that you're down here and you would like to be up here, it doesn't have to take years to go through this journey. If you will take it in bite-sized pieces, if you will, it's the slow, fast way to shortcut through this. There is no way that you can go in one fell swoop. Well, I shouldn't say there isn't no way, but it's a whole lot harder to go, and it's a crapshoot if you want to try to go from down here all the way up in one fell swoop. Boom, happily ever after syndrome. Now what's next? I can move on to some really cool stuff. I can move on to like the next things that I want to work on. Now I'm done. And we can go from there. However, and this is why we've been programmed to believe that these kind of shifts and this kind of expansion and growth and being able to create these kind of breakthroughs on demand for ourselves, we've been programmed that it's going to take years. And that it's, like what's the popular scenario in the self-help personal development lingo and the spiritual space as well is, well, it's an onion. And we've got to peel back each layer of the onion, and then the next layer, and then the next layer. And then maybe 50 years from now, we will be, there. And, it's like the Lion King, where he holds up the Lion King, and everybody bows down, and that we finally achieved it, and there we are, right? And in fact, what's going on is not that. And in fact, what we have is it's really hard. And the reason why we keep experiencing the snapback is that we keep trying to go from down here all the way up to here, and then we get pissed off when we're not getting that, when that's not happening. And we may have some incremental success down here, but we're not calling it success. When we move from depression into fear, we're not celebrating that. We're not saying, yay! We're saying it sucks because I'm still down here and I want to be up here. I'm a failure, or this didn't work, or the whole thing didn't work, right? So that's the journey, but it is an emotional journey that we're going to. We're also, next week, we're going to talk about how to put this into action. And there's a whole nother part over here that I teased y'all with earlier, even though I've got both pages side by side here. There's the 3 episodes that we're going to be stacking up next week. The workshop stack for next week is going to be all about the legitimize, personalize, and capitalize phases of this that is going to automatically allow you to go through this journey. And I'm going to give you some tools to make that happen as it relates to the teaching model, which is building an online successful business from a principle-based approach, right? So, but notice down here that once we get a little bit of action, once we get a little bit of motion, a body in motion tends to stay in motion unless acted upon by an outside source. Just like a body at rest tends to stay at rest unless acted upon by an outside source. So the problem that we encounter oftentimes is that we get up here and we're comfortable up here, or this is really what we are trying to achieve is we're trying to get into these feelings of excitement, of bulletproof, of ignorance on fire, right? And we are not seeing that this isn't the whole journey. We're thinking about, all right, once we get here and we're feeling excitement on a particular subject, we're feeling like I got this, like I finally, this is, I'm have some momentum. I'm moving in the direction because now I have we've overcome inertia, and a body in motion tends to stay in motion unless acted upon by an outside source. It doesn't say that it's necessarily going to grow. However, what happens is that we start to bang our head into the barrier of motivation, and we don't understand it. We don't recognize that it's actually a barrier that we're crashing into here, and it sucks, right? And so every time we smack our head into it and we don't necessarily know how to cultivate this over here, the inspired action breakthrough, we're not aware of how to do that, well, then what we end up with is we end up falling back down, way down here, and we say, that didn't work. I failed. Or, shit, I was screwed again. God damn it, I fell for it again. I fell for this time it'll be different lie. And, when am I going to learn? Because, and then I'm right back here into overwhelm, into confusion, into these types of emotions down here, right? And then maybe we build up enough courage and we have enough clarity to go, all right, well, this is what was different about it last time from this time. And now we're going to go over here and we're going to deal with the same kind of thing that we did. And now we're going to go back through the thing and we're going to dare to try again. We're going to dare to get back up off the mat. And unfortunately, what's going to happen is that eventually we are going to hit this wall or barrier of motivation, and the snapback loop is going to happen. Because we can get through sheer will, through sheer brute force, and by just gritting it out and making it happen, we can push through these things, and we can be determined to make it and get to these feelings, get to this area of those types of things, right? And so when we do, what ends up happening is that we think we figured it out, and then all of a sudden, one of our old Fred stories that we were, because a Fred story is completely unconscious, right? Or, if we're doing it this way and we're not in the same pattern, we're repeating the same thing again and again and again, right? Where we start to work on this, then we start to see the unconsciousness. But let's just say what's been happening before, and we get into the motivated motivation barrier, and we snap back because we're unaware that Fred, even though we're not aware of Fred, even though we are, it's completely unconscious, even though it's invisible, even though we're still in the excitement phases and the bulletproof phases, where it's like where I was from the time that I was 32 to 42, right? It took me till age 32, even though I'd been pursuing it literally since the age of 5 to become, for freedom, to become a millionaire. It took me to the age of 32 to become a millionaire for the first time. And then over the next 10 years, I made and lost millions and millions, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4, going on 5 times now in that 10-year period. Why? Because I had no idea that these Fred stories were going on, even though I felt more often than not excited and bulletproof and I got this and ignorance on fire. But I had no idea why. The reason why for the snapback for me, The reason why is that when I got here and I made it material wise, success wise, as the outside world would define it, and that all of a sudden I would like not feel fulfilled, and it wasn't, it wasn't curing, it wasn't solving, it wasn't healing any of the feelings of negativity, of emptiness, of all of that stuff. And so what happened? Well, my Fred story then had the power to take over, because Fred works 24/7 and the unconscious is still there, even though we're not aware of it, but it's working 24/7, 7 days a week. And so it snaps back. And so before you know it, you're in that same pattern of thought, of behavior, and now you're back to where you were before, wherever those set points are. Now, maybe more of the time you're set down here and you're constantly going between here and here on a particular subject. And again, it's going to vary depending on you and depending on your subject and depending on, the outside world and how much you've done in terms of making yourself aware of your unconsciousness, of making the unconscious conscious. So then we've got over into here where we can start to realize. And as soon as we can continue to go, to see that, wait a minute, what I really want is I want focused excitement. I don't want it to feel like it's going to turn me inside out, because that's such a big thing. I want it to feel like, yeah, of course it was going to happen. It was the next logical thing. It was just a matter of time. It's not if it's going to happen, but when. And you know what? When's under my control. Why? Because I've accessed my because you said so superpower, or because I said so superpower. And we talked about that in the previous whiteboard or workshop episode on this, when we talked about the barrier of inertia and the confidence breakthrough, where we have now the same kind of the same kind of excitement, and we're going through that journey. But now what we want is, we want it to be the next logical choice, and we want to be able to access and know that it's no big secret. We don't have to have the right situation. We don't have to have the right lucky charm or magic rock or crystal or whatever, or the numerology numbers don't have to line up just perfectly to make our, to make the circumstances work in our favor, given what our biorhythms are, given, whatever all that is, that we have the power to access the BYSS superpowers, because you said so superpowers on demand. And that, yeah, of course, it's just there. So it's not going to turn you inside out, but now you have that quiet confidence that because you said so, there's no force necessary, right? And so if you want to be into the past the barrier of motivation, then you want to be aiming for feelings of appreciation, but that being your set point, not like just glimmers of it, and then you snap back to your set point being far below that, right? Yeah, there we are. Okay, so the and really what we're talking about is when something becomes an exact expectation. And we've been doing this all along, and if you haven't achieved something that you've been working on for a long time and it's been really hard to get, then believe it or not, you've been experienced this process, and you do have an ironclad expectation. It's just for the unwanted result instead of the wanted result. Like, you may be at times hopeful down here and cautiously optimistic, and you may have lingering doubts, and you may have even some excitement and experience bouts of like, I'm going to make this happen, and this is the way it is, and that type of thing as we go through this, right? But your expectation your set point expectation in that scenario is not to manifest the wanted results. It's to manifest the unwanted. And I guess I skipped a W. So let me erase this and see that? Now I can do the unwanted versus the wanted. And so we've got to be careful that our expectation, and again, all of this is unconscious. It's not like you're saying, oh, like I'm intending to create this, no. What you're looking to do is you're operating with the best of intentions. However, if you will follow this direction and you will start to R&D Fred and start to intentionally do that, now you have a guidepost. And the guidepost is from where you are, and you can figure out where you are on this journey by simply going down here. Let's see here. Yeah, there's my laser pointer. Okay. And wherever you are, whatever you're feeling now, just look at whatever the emotional connection that you're having, that you're feeling in the moment. What is the emotion? And you can kind of tell where you are on the journey. And you'll know, like, what do I need to work towards? And now you can move through this very, very rapidly if you don't try to go from way down here all the way up to here in one fell swoop, and if you will do the R&Ding in between, because you will find that you can actually move your set point in, like 60 seconds or so. You can move, if you'll take the bite-sized pieces that are bite-sized, and only you, by the way, can get to say what's right for you. Only you get to determine whether the bite-sized pieces that we're talking about here to the next level that you can R&D that is more too big of a leap or just right of a leap or too small of a leap. Only you can determine that by what? By how you feel. And immediately you can do the set points and you can reset there. And what you'll find is that maybe the first time through this journey, it might take several months to go through the whole thing. If the subject is really a big subject for you, and it's something that feels so far away and so impossible for you when you're feeling it now, then it might take a few months, even using this technique and becoming aware of it, because you've never done it before, and you've got to become there. However, if it's something that you don't have that emotional charge about, even if it's not anything that you've achieved before, but it doesn't feel impossible, but like it's like no big whoop or whatever, you can find that you can actually pick a subject that you can go through this entire journey on, even though you might start off, and you probably won't be starting off way down here if it doesn't feel really intense, like really far away from you. Because the reason why it feels far away from you is the emotions that you're feeling are way down here. Right? So, and where you want to be feeling is way up here. So it feels really far away from you because it is far away from you. So the more impossible that it feels to achieve it, the more that you are down here. But let's say it's a particular subject that you're like pretty excited about and you're feeling pretty confident about, even though you haven't yet achieved where you want to be on it, but you don't feel it's not as impossible as it once felt. Well, then your set point is probably on that subject is probably somewhere up here, right? And so this is the journey that we're talking about, and we can actually kind of skip ahead right down here to, and we can, let's see, I can do it that way. I'm trying to figure out the right setting. I guess that's pretty close to that. And so that's the journey, right? And you know what? Let me just, we can just use this diagram here and we can kind of zoom in and out if we need to. But this is the whole thing that you can kind of see a little bit. It's broken up so that it's still the same journey here. But that's the journey. And what you will find is when you get to this area, when you get, let's put that right there so that this is easier to see. So we've got and we're smacking into the barrier of motivation, but now what we're doing is we are R&Ding our Fred stories so that we are now in control of it. And we're in the driver's seat we're no longer at the effect of the situation. We're no longer at the effect of what somebody else does, somebody else's behavior to create a different situation. We have the power because we now are seeing that our feelings about the situation, our decision about the situation is entirely up to us so long as we've R&D'd Fred, right? And so long as we've allowed that to go on its way. And now that's where we've our next breakthrough. And now what happens is that we can, once we stop doing the back and forth and stop banging our head into the motivation barrier, now what we've got is, more often than not, we're staying focused. And we're staying focused in a way that, like, not doggedly focused, right? Where we're focused because we're scared to stop because we don't want to go way back down here, right? And we don't want to snap back that way. But we're focused because we know what we're about. We know what we're doing, right? And we know where it is that we're going to, and that we don't need overnight results, but we could create it as fast as we want to create it because we're focused. And achieving it, even though we may not be living it yet, even though we're not up here, we're necessarily the center of the bullseye on this topic that we want to be, and we're not living it yet, we know, what? It's just the next, it's just around the corner. It's, no big whoop. I can get there. I'm focused. And you know what? Here's the thing. When you do get there from, once this is your new set point and you're not oscillating because you're not doing battle with the outside world and with all of this, and you're not on the subject going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? When you're allowing yourself to actually create a new set point where on this topic you've R&D'd enough of your Fred stories that what your set point is either solidly in being focused, positively focused, or set point being, in appreciation, in knowing that, like, I'm so appreciative for the world around me and for everything, and that the world is like conspiring to help me. The universe is bringing all the right opportunities to me at the right time. And if that's your set point, and God, I'm so lucky, I'm so appreciative of that, right? Then when you go and you actually, even though you haven't yet from this point or this point, you're not yet where you want to be on the subject. Once you do get there, and you know that you will, because it's just, a matter of the right tweaking to get to the right, ingredient to get there, it is not going to feel like it was for me at 32 when I became a millionaire for the first time. When you've achieved something for the first time that turns you like inside out, like, holy moly, like, this is incredible, like that, then it was such a far stretch that you definitely are in danger of a Fred story snapping you backwards, because it does, like, you haven't equalized there. So the good news, bad news situation is when you get here, it isn't going to feel like, oh my God, like incredible. But guess what? The reason why is that most of the time you're feeling inside incredible. It's like awesome, happy, joyous, like this is incredible expectations. And that's where you're feeling. And the reason why it doesn't feel any different or much different is that you're not so far away from it that you can then bridge into it very simply. Now, we've been talking about the mental journey. We've been talking about the mental journey, which drives the emotional journey. And we've been talking all about who's been in the driver's seat unknowingly has been Fred. And we've been talking about how to make the unconscious conscious so that you can choose the tale of two paths. Next week, now that we have this foundation, we're going to start to apply the legitimize, personalize, and capitalize steps in the seventh episode, or the first of the three-part workshop stack that we're going to do next week. We're going to talk all about the legitimize step. And then we're going to move into the second of the three workshops next week. We'll move into the personalized step. And this one's going to blow your mind, because this is probably what's tripping you up in terms of the real world out here. If you aren't achieving online success, or you're not achieving to the degree that you'd like to be achieving it, I would venture to say that if you've experienced some sort of success already, but you're still battling between here and here, and you're going up and down a little bit, and occasionally you might feel a little bit of that excitement and expectation and appreciation up here, but then you bounce right back down here. I would venture to say that the personalize it step is going to rock your world. And of course, the capitalized step is important, and that's what everybody wants to focus on. But the journey, actually, I think you're going to find that the zero factor in next week's stack is going to be something that you've never thought about before, and it's the personalize it step of the process. And then, of course, we're gonna go into the leverage it step, or capitalize it step of the process. And so that'll be our workshop stack for next week. Now, having said all that, what we've got is what begins next week is the journey of automatically creating an environment for us that we're going to come up against our Fred stories, that we're going to be able to face off on this, that we're going to be able to face off and come up to battle on as we go through the journey of the legitimize and personalize it and capitalize it steps, that as we use the teaching model of the building a successful online business, the design has happened so that we can then experience where we are here and go through the journey and not have to go like consciously through this journey, so that we can actually play around with and experiment with what we need to put it into action in terms of the to create this in a way that is going to what am I trying to say? So that we can create this in a way that you have a experiential model, right? So that you can experience both the yin side of the equation as well as the tactical yang side of the equation through both journeys. And then as we continue to expand outwards, we're going to continue, because it's not an easy shift. If you're so entrenched in motivated action and motivation-based living versus inspiration-based living, then it's in the beginning, it's really hard to accept that you don't have control over it, that you don't have power over your circumstances, that you don't have control and power over what's going on right now in your life, and that all of that is out of your control and in somebody else's hands, not your own. And yet, the more that we do this, the more that you will see that you actually have the power. And so, by doing both simultaneously, and by starting with the emotional journey and giving you the framework of the three different barriers, so that you can start to recognize what's going on, so that as you start to feel those different emotions in yourself, then you know, oh, no big whoop. I don't have to get all crazy over this. It's just part of the journey of going from where I am right here, at the bottom, down here, all the way up here to the top of where I'd like to go. And all of these barriers and the different breakthroughs along the way and the different emotions that I'll be feeling along the way, that's all normal. That's all what we're going to be expecting. And as we go through the legitimize, personalize, and capitalize steps, that's when things are going to start to really get into action. And then once we do that, then you've got to put it into action also. So, I mean, even next week, this is still part of even though we're going to be more tactical in nature as it relates to building your online success profile. And here's a quick peek at what those 3 steps look like next week and how it all kind of comes into play. And the reason why you'll see that this over here is designed kind of like in an arc, right? Is that it automatically goes into those next steps pretty seamlessly, provided that you're aware of it and provided that we have the right process in place. So that's why we started with all this groundwork that was necessary to create this kind of outcomes for ourselves. And I think that's about all I have for us for this week. And I think next Tuesday, I believe, we're going to have a special guest. Max is going to join us, and we're going to figure out how to. And I think that'll be great because Max has some really great questions, and we can start to really roll up our sleeves and do this workshop stacks from this 3 from this week, as well as beginning next week, and we can start to really play back and forth to it, and then. It's just a matter of living it in our lives for a continual process until it becomes a habit for ourselves. And believe it or not, yes, of course, I've got some tools and resources for us to be able to understand and to have a shift in paradigm and to make those key distinctions that are necessary to go into the next realm. So that's where we're heading. That's what's going on. And any questions? Any thoughts? I do need to wrap up by noon today. However, I'll pause here for a minute and see if there's any kind of questions. Cool. Well, please remember that to go over to speakuphere.com, and that'll redirect you to the new Motivation Sucks YouTube channel where all of this is going to be housed eventually. And by the way, if you want to experience this, the quickest way through all of this stuff, the fastest way, is in collaboration with other people in community. And so that's what I'm looking to create here with everybody and giving them the tools to be able to do that. But in the meantime, you can help do that for yourself by finding a workout partner, so to speak. Somebody that's on the same wavelength as you, that also wants to work on some of the same things so that you guys can stand for each other. And please invite them into the fold here, into the family, and introduce them. Yes, it is a cool way of expanding out awareness for the show and getting people to be an evangelist, so to speak, or be an ambassador for the show here. And also, it just so happens to be the right move for each individual person because it's much easier to do things in partnership with other people, particularly when you are moving in the same rate or the same realm, and you guys can stand for each other. And you know, you still are going to be able to see somebody else's Fred story easier than you'll be able to see your own in the beginning. Now, as you go along, you'll both be able to do it, so you can be able to help each other, and you'll be able to move a lot faster. And having me is great, and to be able to facilitate the experience for you, and to be able to do that. But it's not going to be as good as having somebody at the same level as you to go through the journey with you, because I've already experienced much of this, through the last 10 years, 12 years of my life, actually now more like 14 years of my life, if I count back to, 12 years, maybe 12 years of my life. Anyway, the point is that you, there's things that I'm going to take for granted, or that I'm going to say to you, that are so far outside your realm of belief, because of the expansion of my awareness that I've been able to experience before, that you're going to doubt it. And yet somebody else that, like, you're going to grasp pieces of this, and that you'll be able to use whatever makes sense for you, like whatever is attracting you to this journey at this point in time is the right thing for you in the right timing. And the piece of the learning that resonates with you is what's right for you right now. It's what's being lined up, right now, what you've been asking for, and you'll get whatever portion of it. And also, I believe that you will be able to achieve greater results faster if you will actually incorporate somebody that's at the same level, so that there's, or, a little bit ahead, or a little bit, so that you guys can help each other over the different barriers, and yet still be able to see something that might be unconscious to your buddy, to your workout partner, that that may or may not be unconscious to you. And that once they see something in you, or you see something in them, then I'll let you know a little secret, that actually what's going to happen is that once you see somebody else's unconsciousness or a Fred story in them, the chances are, guess what, 100%, that you have a variation of that same Fred story in you that you can then observe. And the reason being that you would not be able to see the Fred story so clearly in somebody else if it wasn't also in you. If you didn't have that Fred story, then you wouldn't be able to see it in somebody else so clearly. And so it's a great tool. Just being able to see it in somebody else is a great tool to then use it, if you so choose, to be a technique to examine and pause and ask yourself, is this true? Is this a Fred story? Or any of the number of other techniques that I've shared with you in the last 6 episodes that are, gone in depth on the how. And you don't need any more how right now, because you've got the hows. Next week, we're going to start to put the why and the what. Next week are going to be all about building your online business and online success from a 100,000-foot view, and be able to apply this as a teaching model towards whatever. I don't care whatever model you happen to be building, whatever expert you might be aligned with. It's not going to go counter any of that, or counterimpose. It's going to give you the resources to be able to do that, implement that type of a plan even better, to enjoy that success even better, assuming that you've done the first step right, which we will be discussing about on Monday, which is the legitimize step. All right. I can't wait to share all this with you. Thanks for being a part of this with me, and I'll be chatting with you next week. See ya.